Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for deciding to join us today. On behalf of the University of South Carolina's Alumni Association, I'd like to welcome all of our recent graduates and our graduating seniors to the alumni family. So, my name is Nicolette Macklin, and I'm a 2013 graduate of the Darla Moore School of Business. I am originally from South Carolina, but I actually currently live in Munich, Germany, working as a business development manager for the state of South Carolina. Um, Even though I'm not living in the US currently, I'm still able to remain involved with the alumni family, and I am our chair-elect for the Young Alumni Council. So the Young Alumni Council is a group of volunteers that works with the Alumni Association, and we aim to connect recent graduates with the rest of the alumni community in order to help with career goals, personal development, and providing general networking opportunities. We also have three other councils as well. So we have the Black Alumni Council, the Veterans Alumni Council, and the LGBTQ plus Alumni Council. And we all put on events throughout the year in order to give you easy ways to stay connected and to provide opportunities for you. So since joining the Alumni Council, I frequently have gotten the question of why do I stay involved, especially when I don't even live in South Carolina or the US anymore. But for me, staying an active member of the alumni family has so many benefits, and you get to be part of something that's bigger than yourself. I am proof that the alumni network really has no boundaries, no borders, and you have the opportunity to interact with people from all parts of the world. You can learn from those that are in your same career field or maybe in your desired career field. You have the opportunities to find mentors, and you can even share your own experiences with someone else as well. So I truly believe that what you put into the network is definitely what you get out of it, but it can be something that is just extremely rewarding. The alumni network can introduce you to new things and open doors for you that you may not have otherwise even come across. And I'm not just speaking professionally, but even on a personal level as well. So the network can help you both professionally and personally. So for instance, for me, I have relied heavily on my network for things like how do I buy a house? Because you can't just go and say, I want that one, or if I'm traveling to X, Y, and Z, I can easily ask someone that maybe went to USC, can you help me with this? I've also used the network as a support system for when I did move abroad to Germany so that I would know kind of what things I should expect since I'm no longer going to be living in the US. And then, of course, on a professional level, the network can be super beneficial because I cannot tell you how easy it is to break the ice when the other person is also a Gamecock. And especially if you're lucky enough to have that person in an interview process, it can really relax everything from there. But engaging with the network can give you leverage to different professional networks. It enables you to make meaningful connections, and really it can enhance your overall postgraduate experience. And I think you will learn that the alumni network can be one of your biggest assets and resources as you are moving forward. And I mean, even notable companies have alumni programs for their coworkers because being a part of an alumni network can truly be beneficial for you. So if you're hearing me right now and you're thinking, so how can I get involved with this network? My first suggestion to you would be to find a local club. We have Gamecock clubs across the nation and the world, and this is a very easy way for you to be able to find your community, especially if you plan to be moving outside of the Columbia area. My second suggestion would be to follow us on social media. So I do believe on Twitter and on Instagram, the handle is at UofSC Alumni, and they are always posting events, engaging with the alumni community and highlighting different Gamecocks that you can even possibly reach out to on LinkedIn. I actually have done this before. So we are super glad that you all chose to join us today, and hopefully you've been able to attend some of the other events as well. But for today's session, we have several speakers that are going to be providing you with the information that will help make the transition from student to alumnus just a little bit easier. And so you'll be hearing from the Career Center on interview tips, advice on personal financing and budgeting, and you'll learn about how you can still be a part of the Gamecock family no matter where you live. And I promise that these are all things that you will be happy that you learned by the time you graduate. And so after today's session, I encourage you to formally join the Alumni Association. There are several different membership options. And aside from the actual events that are hosted, you can also get discounts to different stores and restaurants, which of course we all love. And also recent graduates do get a really good rate. But being a part of the association will just put you in the best possible position to take advantage of all of the different alumni opportunities. But with that, that brings us to our first speaker, Ms. Ashley Chapman. So Ashley is a higher education professional with a history of working in career services, orientation, academic support services, undergraduate research, study abroad, and first-year seminar. She earned her Master of Education in Higher Education Administration from the University of South Carolina. So currently, Ashley serves as the Career Studio Coordinator in the Career Center at UofSC. So I will go ahead and pass it over to Ashley, and we thank you so much for joining us today. And I personally am looking forward to hearing some of the tips that you have to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicolette, for that warm welcome. I really appreciate it. And whenever you're ready, Haven, I am also ready for the slides. Awesome. Thank you so much. You can go ahead and go to the first one. So just to give you all an idea of what we're going to be talking about today, I also just wanted to open up, please use the chat feature if you have any questions throughout this presentation, but I also encourage you to share your own tips. So if there's something that's not up here, utilize this network that has been created today and go ahead and share that information. So where we're going to head today is we're going to talk a little bit about the stages and the different types of interviewing. For some of you who might have already graduated, I know I'm a UofSC alum of 2020. So I went through my whole interviewing process during COVID, which was mostly virtual. There's also, we're going to talk about what you can do before the interview, the types of questions you might have, whether they're traditional or behavioral. And then we're going to kind of give you some tips on what to do after your interview. So go ahead, Haven, I'm ready for the next one. So to start us off, I'd love for you all to go ahead and pick one of these questions and type your response into the chat. So either, what interview experience have you had? What interview questions are you most concerned about? Or what interviewing tips do you have for others? So I'm going to go ahead and pause and give you all a second to reflect and send those in the chat box. Star-based interview questions. That's a great one. We're going to talk about that today. Questions of concern. Tell me about yourself, very open-ended, and what makes you the best fit for our company. I also wanted to let you guys know, once you send something in the chat, just make sure you hit that drop-down menu to send it to all panelists and attendees so everyone in the room can see it, but I can see them on my side. I also have one that says, I always get super worried about the behavioral types of questions, like what some people consider the fun ones. I can totally relate to that, Gracie. I'm thinking of the one, if you were a shoe, what kind of shoe would you be? That one always gets me a little bit nervous, but we can go ahead on to the next slide. So I always like to remind people that when you get to the interview process, the employer already knows that you are qualified for the position. That is the whole point of the application. So your resume has already been in the hands of potentially some hiring committees, potentially some of the direct people that you're going to be working with. They know that you're adequate for the position. At that point, they're just trying to find out if you are the best fit for their organization. But also too, just confirming that your qualifications do match up for what you wrote about, or maybe asking you some more questions. Whereas for you, you're really seeing if this is a place that you could see yourself working at. Do they have the values that are important to you? And maybe that's something that you think about going into your interview process. It's a chance for you to ask those clarifying questions, learn more about the role, but then also to figure out if this is where you really want to be. So for some of you who are about to graduate, you might be interviewing with a lot of different employers. And I always give the tip, after your interview, go ahead and write out, what you thought. Do you see yourself there? What questions are you still left with? What did you really like about the people that you met or the position? But we're going to go ahead and keep going. So these are the different types of interviews that you might go through. And sometimes with full-time interviews, you might have multiple different rounds. So I know for my position, I had 3 different rounds of interviewing. The first one is typically some type of screening. Sometimes this is done on the phone. It might even be on a virtual call now with COVID. It just depends on the employer, where you might be meeting with a representative from human resources. It's usually very short, so maybe 15 to 30 minutes. They're kind of asking some clarifying questions about your qualifications, telling you a little bit about what to expect with the process. The second round interview sometimes can be a video, or it might be in person as well. I've seen this be one-on-ones. I've seen them be a panel of interviewers where you might have multiple different people from the company or the organization, or it might be a large group. The last round sometimes is typically an on-site interview or in-person interview where you get to see the facility where you're working at. Sometimes they will even fly you out for these interviews if you're looking, all over the country, or sometimes internationally. It just depends. But we're going to go ahead and keep going. So the different stages of an interview, kind of giving you an idea of what the process is like for some of you who might not have gone through a formal interview process for a full-time job. So within that first interview or any interaction, first impressions are so important. And so I always tell folks, how you write your email correspondence, even communicating with the front desk staff when you're checking in, everything is kind of taken into consideration. But also knowing too that you want to put your best foot forward. So making sure that you're dressing professionally, that if you're on a virtual call, that you're looking into the camera, that you have a clean background behind you, that you're in a quiet spot, you've tested out your technology. Then the next part of the interview is really your chance to build rapport with the employer. So they're learning a little bit about you, you're learning about them, seeing if that's a good fit. The majority of the process is going to be where you're exchanging information. So they're going to give you an overview of the position, the company, their values, their mission. They're going to ask you a series of questions, and then you're going to have the chance to ask them questions, which is always, something when I've given this presentation, people are asking, what type of questions do I ask the employer? And we'll get to that. But go ahead to the next slide. So in the chat box, I'd love for you all to go ahead and answer this question. So what do you think you need to be aware of during virtual and phone interviews? And how should you prepare? Or how have you prepared? What are some of the tips that you've used personally? A quiet, non-distracting background. Absolutely. And I know Nicolette, she had an awesome virtual background when she had her video on, and you can definitely look into those. There's so many that have been developed because of COVID. What other ones do we have? Something I'll say too is in the Career Center, I know some of you, a quiet location, this is a great segue. We have a whole hallway of interview suites. And so if you live with, maybe other people or in a community where it might be kind of loud and you just need a quiet spot to come to, you can reserve one of our interview rooms, and it's nice and quiet. We even have access to technology if you need it. So just kind of keep that in mind. But we're going to go ahead on to the next slide. And then this is a good question. Should you prepare the same as you would an in-person interview? And we're going to kind of talk about that. There's a couple different things that I recommend for virtual interviewing over in person, but I still tell folks, dress head to toe in professional attire just to get yourself in the right mind space that you are ready for an interview. So for our phone interviews, some of the things that we are looking for is that quiet atmosphere. Service is really important. So for example, right now I'm in the Career Center, which is in the library. And so I wouldn't want to be on a lower level of the library because my phone service might not be as well for an interview. Making sure that you're speaking slowly and clearly, smiling, even though they can't see you, they can hear it in the tone of your voice, and having those resources. So something that I typically will do is print out the job description that I'm applying for and write my questions in advance. And I do this for all different types of interviews, whether it's phone, video, or even in person. And I think it's completely okay if you walk in, with your Padfolio to an in-person interview and you have your questions pre-written. I think it shows that you've done your research and that you really care about the role and you know exactly what you're asking. Because for some of us, we're making a lot of big decisions if we're willing to relocate for this position, or, are they really presenting opportunities that are going to help further your career? For the video interviews, I can't emphasize enough testing your technology. Sometimes they're on different sites, beyond Zoom or Teams or Blackboard Collaborate. I know some of you have experience with that, where it might be a different software that they're using that you might not have ever used before. So making sure that you have a good mic set, good headphones, whatever that looks like for you to feel comfortable with your technology, setting the scene, minimizing those distractions. And so another student of mine had told me previously, they had their mom walk in on the middle of their interview. They had no idea that they were in an interview process virtually. So just making sure the people you live with or the people you're surrounded with know, like, hey, for the next hour, I am unavailable. Please, please, please do not come in. And then your body language is super important as well. So making sure that you're sitting up in a chair, that you're not lounging for those interviews. But go ahead to the next slide. So the types of questions, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into these later on in the presentation, is we have directed and non-directed questions, those behavioral questions, scenario-based. They may ask you traditional yes, no, they just need a straight answer. Sometimes there's an ethical dilemma, so they want to see how you respond in a situation. Same thing with the stress questions. But you can go to the next slide. Go ahead to the next one. We're going to talk about before the interview. So what do we recommend you all do is do your research. And what does that really mean? So finding out on their website, the mission, the vision, what's important to them, their values, the history. Did they recently go through a leadership shift? Are they short-staffed? Do they have a problem with turnover in their office? Sometimes a really good way to find out this information is looking on either their social media or their LinkedIn pages, seeing what their employees are posting about, what they care about. That kind of ties into, finding out who their competitors are across the industry. So I know with my position, I stepped into a brand new role that's never existed in the Career Center before. And so I did a lot of research comparing, what do other institutions who have this role, what does this look like? And how are they kind of building their model? So keeping all of these things in mind when you're doing your research. Go ahead to the next slide. And you can go ahead and click it again for me. So where to research, I said a couple of these things. Handshake is another great resource. So this is, and you have access as an alum and as a student to Handshake. This is the university's job site. So we post tons of different opportunities. There's events, positions. It is the only one that we can verify that all of the positions on there are legitimate. Every job that's posted is looked at by one of our staff members and vetted to make sure that it's not a job scam. Other sites that have really good postings, like LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, some of these other ones are awesome, but we can't verify with 100% confidence that they're all legitimate positions. So I always like to give that disclaimer. You can go ahead and click for me. These are some other sites too that you can look at. Your own personal network is so important. I think a lot of different jobs that are out there, I believe the percentage is like 60 to 70% of jobs that people get are never posted. So really taking advantage of your network. And so even with the people that you're going to interact with today and the presenters that you meet, go ahead and connect with them on LinkedIn. I always do that after any type of virtual webinar. I send over a note and say, hey, I really liked hearing your presentation today. I would love to connect with you, because with LinkedIn, what's so cool is whatever you post or whatever you like or interact with on that platform is then kind of put into other people's news feeds, so they can see, what your engagement looks like. So that's a tip too that I encourage you all to look into. And if you have never developed a LinkedIn page before, if you need some help sprucing yours up, just know you can reach out to the Career Center. That's something that we can help with. You can go to the next slide. So a couple of other pre-interview tips that we have is just preparing yourself in advance. So I never, ever encourage people just to go into an interview just saying, hey, I'm going to wing it. I remember when I was in early in college and undergrad, and some of those part-time jobs I had, I was like, oh, I got this, I'll just do it on the spot. Do not recommend that for professional interviews. So making sure that you have all your materials, practicing is so important. And something that we have available in the Career Center is you can schedule, once you know you have an interview coming up, we do a 45 to 60-minute mock interview. So our career coaching staff can take the position description that you applied for, and we can build an interview based off what we think the employer is going to ask you. We'll go through a whole interview process with you and then give you feedback on your performance and have a really great conversation on, hey, these are things that you're doing really well. These are areas of how you can elaborate. I know when I was in undergrad, I would have never done anything like that because it was way too intimidating for me. But I think it's one of the best things that you can do to prepare. If you're like me, who's more like, hey, I don't know if I could handle that feedback so directly in person, we also have a site called Big Interview, which has thousands upon thousands of interview questions that are on there. You have access as a USC student, you log in with your information. The system will record yourself like through a virtual platform. And with AI technology, it will tell you even, where your eyes are going, if you're talking too fast, if you're using too many hand motions. It gives you a lot of great feedback. So I highly encourage you guys to check into that as well. But we can go to the next slide. So I am going to ask this question, and I would love for you all to put what you think into the chat. So what personal qualities do you look for? So we ask this to employers when hiring a college student, and what other characteristics should one possess in order to succeed on the job? So go ahead in the chat. What do you think employers are looking for when they're hiring somebody right out of college? What do you think is important to them? And I'm going to show you the top 10 answers in a second. Genuine and dedicated. That's a great one. A commitment to their business or institution. Confidence. Yeah, these are all great. Awesome. Hayden, you can go ahead and click that next slide. We also got leadership experience. So these are the top 10 answers. A level of being able to coach them. I think that's a great one too. Personable was number one. They want to make sure that you are genuine in your interactions with them, that you're upbeat, you're not intimidated to ask those questions, that really thinking in advance about what you want to ask, that you have those analytical thinking skills, that you don't need continuous supervision. I think a lot of us have developed this skill during COVID with so much remote work. That you're firm, but you're not overbearing, that you have that prior work experience, that you're goal driven. I think that's something to kind of take into consideration when you're sharing your experiences, letting them know what kind of goals you set, how you achieved them, what was your measure, willing to take on the unknown, and then punctual. So go on to the next slide. So as you're kind of thinking about your experiences that you want to share in your interview process, one of the best tips I got from a mentor is while you're currently involved in something, or maybe you're kind of in the process, you're about to graduate, you're reflecting on the last 4 years, is pull up a Word document on your computer. And whenever you go through any type of situation, so maybe you had a conflict at work, or maybe you had a really great win where you met your goal and you met your benchmark, or maybe you started a new initiative, go ahead and type that on your computer, document what happened. Who are the people that were involved? What steps did you take? What did you learn from this experience? Why was it challenging for you? And I think as you're preparing for an interview, it's really helpful to go back and look at all of these different things that you've done as you're kind of piecing together some of these questions. So here are some examples of things that you can think about. Maybe you were involved with these while you were in school, is internships or work experience. That even counts as those part-time jobs that you had that were really valuable. If you ever did any research, what kinds of things did you do in your class? Volunteer work, your involvement with student organizations, or even if you studied abroad. So as you're answering your interview questions, making sure that you have a blend of your different experiences so that you're not just focusing on the one thing that you did, but kind of everything that you've learned. Go ahead to that next slide. And we can go into the next one too. So we're going to talk a little bit about this traditional question. So the first one, and everyone can always see this coming, is the tell me about yourself question. So a couple of tips that we have for you, don't focus on any type of personal information. And I think this is just a standalone comment for any interview process. So you don't want them to know how old you are. An employer is not allowed to legally ask you that question anyway, so you don't want to kind of disclose that information. You might feel comfortable in sharing, but this question is not the time or the place to do it. Telling them about your siblings or where you grew up or what your experiences were like when you were in school. We also encourage people to avoid summarizing everything on your resume. Chances are they've already read that document. This is a chance for them to learn something different about you. Instead, we encourage people to focus on, your most significant experiences. What were your most defining moments to you? What skills and competencies do you bring to the table? And I think what's really impressive is when a candidate tells them exactly why they're interested in this position, or why are they interested in working for this organization? Because chances are they know if you're job searching, you're probably looking at a couple other companies, but why do you see yourself with this specific one? We can go on to that next slide. So we also too can anticipate in some form or another a strengths and weaknesses question. And so we recommend that you prepare at least 3 for each of these. Sometimes this is in the form of, what would your closest friends say your top 3 strengths are, or people that have worked with you. Something that can help you if you're like, I don't know how to answer this question, is on our site, and this is available for current students, also alum, is you can look into our career assessments. And so there's one, I know on the internet, there's one that's called StrengthsFinder. We have ones called MBTI or Super Strong, and they are basically personality, work value assessments that will kind of tell you what you're good at, maybe areas of growth that you have. I don't know if we have any Enneagram fans in the room. This is all kind of the same language that we're talking about. So being able to take something like, I might struggle with, for example, if a student said, I might struggle with time management, or I might struggle with taking initiative, whatever it is, always thinking about how you are improving upon those weaknesses, and maybe stepping into leadership positions that require you to take on initiative, or showing, how you're working towards these. I'm going to go ahead on to the next slide. So now we're going to kind of transition into talking about these behavioral interview questions. Go ahead to the next one. So this is where the STAR method comes into play. And so we coach students. If you've never used this before, we can even help you with this. But whenever you're asked an interview question, this is kind of the flow that you want to go through. So you want to first tell them the situation, setting the scene and giving them the necessary details of your example. So for example, if you were involved with something, say you were involved with like a student organization, making sure that you're switching the jargon so that a person who's never heard of that organization or never been a part of that can understand what you're talking about. Then you want to let them know, what was your task? So describe what your responsibility in the situation was. What was your role? What was your assignment? Then kind of talking about the action. So letting them know exactly what steps you took to address, whatever it is that you were in. And then the results. I find that this is often the part that most people leave out. So what was the outcome? This could be good or bad. And maybe you transition into sharing what you learned as a result of it, of the actions that you achieved. We can go ahead on to the next one. The next question that, a lot of people ask about is what questions do you have for me? I always encourage people, have questions prepared for them every single time. You never want to get to the end and say, I don't have any questions for you. So I typically, recommend, and it all depends upon time, have anywhere from maybe 3 to 5 questions pre-written out that you want to ask. And ask questions related to your values. So I know for me, when I was going through my process, something that was really important to me was the supervisor that I had, but also the people that were on my team. And how I worked with them. So I asked a lot of questions about their supervisor style, or, what is their management style like? What type of autonomy will I get within my role? Will I have opportunities to take on new projects? Thinking, this is your chance to sneak in more information that you want them to know about you. So maybe you ask a question and then follow up with some commentary. I think the interview process sometimes feels like it's such an exchange of like, I'm asking a question and then this person's going to give an answer, but you can have a dialogue about it as well. And then also too, this is a chance for you to clarify any uncertainty that you might have about the position. For example, I know some positions require a lot of travel. So maybe clarifying, how often, what does that look like when you say 60% travel? Is it certain times of the year? Are there certain busy seasons that I'm going to have to do a lot of traveling? Will I be compensated for the travel? All of those different things. But we can go on to the next slide. Then after the interview, we typically recommend, thanking the interviewer. You could either do this in the form of a handwritten note. Maybe if you're doing it in person, you've already kind of pre-written your handwritten notes so that you can hand it off to whoever the front desk receptionist is. I often like to send an interview where an email about the interview where I can kind of say, hey, I really appreciate learning more about XYZ during our conversation. I just want to really reemphasize how much I'm interested in this role. If they ask you for any type of additional materials, always following up. So sometimes positions require you to take an additional test, or they might ask for, transcripts, whatever that looks like, and then taking some time to reflect. And this is so helpful, especially when you get to the process of Maybe you've received an offer and you have to make a decision, within a couple of days of whether or not you want to accept this position. So taking that time to reflect. We can go on to the next slide. And so here are some different resources for you all. I know the first one I talked about was Big Interview. We also have something that's called a behavioral interview generator. So you can get an idea of the different types of questions, and practicing is really helpful, even just recording yourself and kind of learning, what are the filler words that you personally like to use when you're speaking, or how can I incorporate a more cohesive response in my storytelling? Something else that we have in the Career Center is called our Career Center Student Toolbox. And so this is just loaded with different resources. If you're in the process of writing your resume or cover letter and want to see a bunch of examples, we have all of those listed on our toolbox. Same thing with, learning more about your work values. And then also too, we have those mock interview appointments that I referenced earlier. We can go on to that next slide. So I just wanted to say thank you all so much for tuning into today's presentation. I really wanted to give some time to answer any of the questions that you all have. So go ahead and throw those into the chat or into the Q&A, and I'll be looking out for those. And while those are coming in, I'm also going to share my contact information just in case you all have any questions afterwards or would like to connect. All right, the first question, how many rounds of interviews do most companies have for an entry-level job? I think that you can anticipate anywhere from 1 to 3 interviews. Most likely it's going to be more than one. Sometimes I've even heard candidates go to a 4th round interview. And so it can typically be about a 2-month process from the time you apply for a position to get through all of the different interviews all the way up into an offer. That was a good one. The next one, should you expect companies to pay for you to travel for an interview? Example, if you have to fly there. That's a great one. I think it varies. Sometimes yes, other times you will have to fund, your travel. I think that's a great question if you are in that screening process with that hiring manager to ask them. That's where I would recommend asking that question. All right, this question says, I have had the opportunity to interview others, and most of the time they ask the same questions. I was wondering if the questions that I ask should be specific and targeted at my interviewers, or should I use broader questions too? I think that's really up to you. I personally like to ask very targeted questions at that specific interviewer. So sometimes I will also too ask the same questions if I'm going through different interviews. So like, for example, the question that I had about the supervision style, so that I can compare the different styles that I'm told about. But I think as specific as you can, but sometimes people will just want to know what the genuine experience is like. So a basic question might be, tell me about the office culture here. What is it like for you to work here? Sometimes I know, especially before COVID, they would do either a, maybe it was an all-day interview process where you had to do a lunch or a dinner with the hiring committee. And there's a lot more informal conversations that you can have there and asking some of those more general ones. So this next question says, do you suggest taking notes during the interview, for instance, when they are explaining the position? I think it's okay if you want to take notes. I would just recommend having like a professional padfolio and then that memo pad on the inside, just making sure that it's nice and clean, but I think that's okay to take notes. And then this next one, this is a great question. If you don't know the salary, is it okay to ask what they are looking to offer someone? I think this is another great question to ask in that initial one, hey, what is the salary range? They're probably going to give you a range of numbers. I would personally not talk, negotiating a salary until you've received an offer. I think it's good for you to be prepared to have a range of about $5,000 over and $5,000 under of what you're about to be, what you're about to say that you want to offer. The Student Success Center in their money management lab has an awesome salary negotiation workshop. It's about 2 hours long, and they teach you a bunch of different skills when negotiating a salary. I highly encourage that one. The next one says, when you're writing the follow-up letter, what is the recommendation when it comes to readdressing something you may have not answered well? That's a great question. I think if you feel like you have to explain any more information, that's okay to do so, but I would always encourage you to keep it very positive with your interactions with them. Okay, next one says, should you apply an interview for a job, even if you are unsure if the job is the right fit for you? Absolutely. The advice that I always give is you don't have to make a decision until you have an offer in front of you. So if you are even slightly interested in the position, go ahead and throw your hat into the ring and just see, maybe that it could be a good fit. You might be really surprised. These are all great questions. What do you do if you're offered the job during an interview? That's also a good one. I think it's up to you. If you, of course, thanking them for their time and thanking them for extending the offer, but even saying, hey, I really appreciate this. I would love some time to think about it. And I think it's also okay too, if you are interviewing other places, letting them know, and this goes for just offers in general, I'm also a candidate for several other positions. Would it be all right if I got back to you, giving them a reasonable timeline? Could I get back to you in about a week? Could I get back to you in about 2 weeks? Sometimes an employer might give you a timeline of when they're looking to move on. But with that being said, if you know that you are no longer interested in a position, I encourage you to email them, thank them again, and say, hey, I've pursued another opportunity. I just wanted to thank you again. Even sometimes you might decide after your first round, like, hey, this just is not for me. And I think that's all right. These are all great questions. Next one that's coming in. What if you didn't click with the office during your first interview, but then you're offered a second interview? Should you take it or tell them you aren't interested? I think going with your gut is really important. And sometimes it depends too on where you're at. So your work values might be very important for you to get and start a position right away. And you might say, hey, I'm going to continue to go through this process and maybe ask some more clarifying questions in the second interview. But I think it's also, I've had some students where they are just like, I absolutely could not see myself working here. And that's okay to tell them that you're not interested anymore. The next one that we have is, what about compensation in terms of hourly pay? If I get asked what kind of pay I'm looking for, I struggle to answer that. It feels uncomfortable every time. I agree with you. I think that is an uncomfortable conversation. Should I ask over what is expected for the position? What if the company has not provided sufficient details on the position, but the job sounds like something you want to pursue? I think a great resource, and I try to do as much salary research, and I know that this is hard depending upon the job titles. Indeed has an awesome feature where you can look all over the country. And I think that's another note is pay looks very different in different industries in certain cities. So keeping in mind, if you're looking for a salary in New York City, that might be totally different than if you're looking at a salary in South Carolina. So what I typically recommend is, just saying, I am open to negotiation when it comes to salary. If you're uncomfortable talking about that up front, you might just say, hey, I'm willing to have that conversation when we get there. Sometimes though, people have a minimum that they have to reach in order to even consider the position. So you might ask that, what typically is the range of this, or what have you paid in the past? I think it's okay to ask those clarifying questions. That's a good one. The next one says, how do you pick who to list as references on your application? So as far as references, I always encourage you to, one, ask your references. So even though you might have worked somewhere before, just making sure someone feels comfortable serving as a reference for you. You have no idea, maybe they have a lot on their plate at that time, or, they might have switched their relationship with that employer you once were at, but first ask them. The second thing that I recommend is always giving them a heads up for every position that you're applying for. So saying, hey, I'm in the process of applying for a position at XYZ, would you be willing to serve as a reference for me? This also gives them an idea of when to expect a phone call or an email correspondence. But then I would pick people that you feel comfortable with speaking on your behalf. So it might be a supervisor or a coworker. If you're currently in school, it might be a professor that you've built a relationship with, or an advisor, or someone maybe you've done research with. So anywhere, I would be prepared to have about 2 to 3 references. This question says, how much background research should you do? I think just taking some time to go through their website, being familiar with, their company, what their organization stands for, what some of their values are, is always important. And taking those notes and just having those ready in your back pocket. I think also too, sometimes just paying attention to the news of, what do you think the current trends are for that, that industry that you're going into, what's important right now. Maybe how politics is impacting that industry sometimes is really relevant. That's a good question. If you know someone who works at the company, should you mention that in your application or interview? Will that help or hurt you? I would absolutely touch base with your connection. I know, for example, when I applied for this position, I knew somebody who worked here, and I just asked for an informational interview. I said, hey, I would love to connect with you again. Would you have time to talk to me for about 20, 30 minutes? I'd love to hear your experience. And then within that conversation, I typically ask them, would it be all right if I reference you in my cover letter? That would be the place that I would do it, within that first paragraph, referencing, hey, I learned about this position from whatever their name is and their position title, who currently works at your organization. I think that most companies are willing to really interview and go through the process with somebody that they already know rather than somebody that they haven't met before. So always relying on that connection, as long as you have a good relationship with them, of course. That was a good one. These have been great questions. I think if we have time for one more, if anything comes through. All right, we got one more. Is it ever okay to ask for a second follow-up interview for a position, even if a second interview is not typical for that type of business that you are interviewing for? That's a great question. I think that the hiring committee is going to set what their expectations are for the process. And so even in your first interview, or maybe in your second one, asking them, how many different rounds of interviews do you typically do? Or what's the timeline? I think this is the way that I always ask, what's the timeline for this hiring process? When are you guys looking to have somebody start? And then the last one that came in is, should your resume be one page long, even if you have to leave some information off that didn't fit on one page, or can you move to a second page? So our rule of thumb is, if you have an undergraduate degree, your resume should be 1 page in length. If you are in grad school or pursuing a PhD, you can have a 2 to 3 page resume. But after that, then we typically say, for every 10 years of experience you have in the field, you can add that additional page. An employer knows that it's not going to capture everything that you've ever done, but it's just giving those key highlights as they are most relevant. But this has been awesome. Thank you all so much for engaging. I went ahead and dropped my email in the chat. If you have any other questions, or if you're just looking to get connected for some more career help, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I can't thank Haven and the Alumni Association enough for letting me present today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Ashley. That was so much great info. And if you guys didn't get to take notes on everything, don't worry, because we will be sending out the recording of this video. But we are going to have about a 5-minute break here before we bring on our next speaker. So run to the restroom, grab some water, whatever you need to do. Don't worry, we will be back with you in 5 minutes. Thanks, y'all.
Something else we're going to be hearing from our next speaker. Our next speaker is Hassan Rossell. In 1992, Hassan entered the University of South Carolina as a bio major with his sights set on medical school. While there, he and a close friend founded Scholastic Profile, a full-service barbershop in the Russell House located on campus at USC. This venture was intended to provide the funds needed to pursue careers in medicine. While operating the Scholastic Profile, Mr. Rossell also interned at one of the country's largest investment firms, and it was there he realized his true passion. It was that experience that led him to the financial services industry in 2008. He's the former chair of UofSC's Black Alumni Council and formerly served as the court-appointed special advocate, in which he spoke to the courts on behalf of kids involved in cases of abuse or neglect. He's currently serving on the board of directors for Cooperative Health. Hassan's committed to advocating for economic empowerment, access to quality healthcare, and ensuring the welfare of kids. At an early age, he can vividly remember losing his childhood home to foreclosure. It was due to his family's financial struggles that he saw the need to educate others on how to create generational wealth and find financial independence. The cultivation of practical, theoretical, and personal experience fuels his passion to encourage, enlighten, and empower others to do more, have more, and worry less. Hassan's primary markets are attorney, business owners, and high net worth individuals. Nevertheless, Hassan's willing to assist anyone willing to live by design and not by default. So everyone please get up for Hassan.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me well. I want to thank the University of South Carolina for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. Like I said, this is truly my passion. And I think life experiences from my own financial struggles, as well as just the experience in the industry and things of that nature, have taught me a lot about life. And I'm always happy to be able to share, especially when there's fellow Gamecocks out there. So I'm excited. I think the biggest problem was that, I'm self-proclaimed ADD, so narrowing down to 30 minutes is a little difficult, because a lot of times when I'm actually meeting with clients, that first meeting can easily go an hour and a half and sometimes even 2 hours. But I'm gonna try today to give you some quality information. And first, we want to talk about something as simple as process, and how it's key to have a process when you're actually doing planning for your financial future. We're going to talk a little bit about the boring topic of savings. Nobody likes to talk about savings, but it is a very, very important topic. And then we're going to talk a little bit about giving you some tangibles that you can take away, implement, so that you get some value out of this. And I'm going to try to leave some time for questions at the end. So just to get started, I share my screen. I'm giving a little bit of time. Sometimes there's a delay. My computer sometimes acting up. But just want to first talk about that first thing about organization and some of the pitfalls that you see in traditional planning. And the first thing is that most people are just simply not organized. That's just because life is coming at you so fast that we tend to get things in life when either we felt some pain, whether it be the death of a family member, or seeing, like in my experience, seeing a family lose a home to foreclosure. Things like that have a tendency to compel us to actually ask more questions and stop looking at things a little bit differently. So my job is trying to help you avoid some of this pain. And when these pain points happen, we reach for things. And the way we put them in our universe is a lot of times is disorganized. Another thing that brings us to lack of prioritization. Because we don't have a process and we don't have a plan, a lot of times we just don't prioritize it and put it in a succinct order. And then another thing, anytime somebody talking to me, the first thing they want to talk about is investments and rate of return. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're going to talk more about rate of savings, how that's more important than the rate of return, and just about guessing the need. Traditionally, the way we like to do planning is some arbitrary number in the future that we want to have as far as, retirement savings, things of that nature. But goals aren't numbers. Goals are totally different than what numbers are. So we want to talk a little bit about just using the highest and best use of every single dollar that comes in our universe when it gets on our balance sheet. So if you can see my screen is changed now, I get it. when you talk about money, this is what your world feels like, what it looks like. It's a whirlwind. You have things going all around you, terms thrown at you, different individuals coming at you, and everybody's an expert. You have 529s. You want to be in a real estate investment someday. And oh yeah, is that old daunting student loan debt that we have that all of us, not all of us, but a lot of us are faced with. And how do we deal with it? Retirement is huge. Sometimes we worry about we're getting too close to retirement and we haven't saved enough. And that's when it becomes a real reality. As we get older, we're going to have kids, and then there's going to be college that we have to plan for their kids. How do we pay for it? But in the very near future, when you go out and get that first job, it's going to be the employee benefits. That's good sleeping material. Most people fall asleep in those presentations when they talk about the benefits you have, but it's so important to understand what you have, because you don't want to wait until the point where you actually need something and you decide you want to look at it. People who actually need something right now have to pay a premium. People who have planned for it have options. So when they arrive to the party, they already have their supplies. So that's what I want just to drive home to you, is just to kind of think about the future. And a lot of times it's difficult because right now there's so much going to the universe, and right now is the most important thing. So if you look at how we do that, we look at where you're at today, and one of the first steps we take is just protecting what your world is today. I want to challenge all of y'all and give y'all permission to think of yourself as millionaires, because you are. You graduated. If you look at the trajectory of your career, you're going to make $1 million over your lifetime, and yeah, that seems like a lot of money, but how do we keep it and capture it in our universe and protect it is key. They often say, one of the best offenses is a great defense. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about just becoming a world-class saver. Everyone want to skip this and go straight to, how do I invest? Well, you invest 10 cents and you get 20% return. What did you actually do? If you invested $10,000 and got 20% return, it's a different conversation. So building that muscle is key. It always starts with the fundamentals. You don't walk into kindergarten and say, I want to spell, I want to be, you can say you want to be a spelling bee champion, but you got to start with your ABCs. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about just having a life events funds. As long as you live, things are going to happen, and more things are going to be pulled into your universe that you're going to have to take care of, and you're going to have to be equipped to overcome. So having funds to, whether it be a wedding, one of the most exciting times in the world. A lot of times, people go into debt for the wedding, but what's the right way to do it? How can we start saving and having just life events funds, whether even for that first house? And then next is just living debt free. There's an order to a lot of this, and the process is so important, because a lot of times we lose balance and we spend so much time into getting debt free until we tie up our cash flow and we can't live for right now. So it is important to live debt free, but the balance is so important. But these essentially are the steps that we have security, confidence, and clarity in what we're actually doing. So just as I told you earlier, I'm going to give you permission to say that everybody on this call is a millionaire. And to kind of drive home that point a little bit further, trying to pull up my screen now, and excuse me if my computer's moving a little bit slow, but I'm doing a lot of this stuff in real time so you can actually see what it actually looks like. And yes, my computer wants to act up. All right, here we go. So if you can see my screen right now, if you just look at the average college graduate, when you graduate and you're making about $55,000 per year in your first job, and you think about a lot of times your working career, if you're 22 years old, I'm going to paint a picture for you. Say you're going to retire at 65, but I know if I speak to a lot of people, they say they want to retire at 45. That's fine. Having a plan for it is doable, but just have to plan appropriately. But we're going to use 43 as a study period, and looking at over a 43-year time span if you made $55,000 per year over 43 years at age 65, through your hand, you would have had a little over $6 million that comes through your hand. 6 million. I want that to sink in right quick. So if you think about your ability to capture, to do anything you want in life, if I gave you $6 million, could you do it? So I want you to envision that you do have it. We just need to position it in the right place. So that's $6 million if it gains absolutely no interest. And if it wasn't invested at all, you got 0% rate of return. That's not a bad take home. So if we look at some things that we can avoid, we cannot avoid taxes. We're going to have to pay them. I don't know what your exact tax rate is going to be, but we're going to use 33% just because, you have taxes on your income. You have taxes when you purchase things. Taxes don't go anywhere. They're always there. They're ever present in our life. And then you look at our debt. A lot of times, this is a true picture. People have about 50% that they're shelling out of their current income towards debt. And then their lifestyle, sad to say, but a lot of times, the saving rate in a lot of individuals is slightly above 1%. So they're actually saving 2% of their income. So if you look at that over the course of your lifetime and look at where that money is going, and if you don't have a plan for it, this is what life looks like. You've paid $1.9 million in just taxes over the course of your lifetime. So is it fair to pay that much to your favorite Uncle Sam and not pay yourself on a systematic way where you have $1 million as well in the future? You've worked all this time, you've saw $6 million, and the average individual, if they only saving 2%, you walk away from that $6 million with $121,000 at the end of your entire working career. I don't think that's fair. I want to give you liberty to put yourself first and to save yourself first by envisioning yourself and understanding that these dollars will be on your balance sheet, but we just have to put them in the right place. So what can we control? A lot of people say they can control their rate of return. They're going to go out and invest and they're going to make some money. They're going to put it in the market. They're going to do X, Y, and Z. Just be conservative. 5%, you can do that easily without a question. So if you invested that money and you got a 5% rate of return and you think about what you got, now you went from a little over $100,000 to $317,000 over your lifetime. It's better, but it's still nothing to write home to mama about. So that's the one thing you can't control. And what I want you to focus on, the one thing you can control. You don't know what rate of return you can get in the market. And I'll venture to say you probably will get more than 5% rate of return in the market. I'm pretty much confident that you can. But if you change one simple thing and you take this back to the 0% rate of return and you change your saving pattern and you save more than yourself, you save 5% more as opposed to try to invest and get more just by saving more, something you can control, you went from a little over $300,000 to $400,000. 5%, but just place the importance and the priorities in the right place. Now, once we did that 5% and we actually have the funds to save, then if we can get 5% on that money that we've actually put in our savings, and then we went out and invest, that makes a difference. And that changes us. Just that simple thing. We went from $100,000 over 43 years, and then we changed our savings pattern and added and saved 5% more on an annual basis, and we went to $1.1 million by getting a 5% return on that money. And that's what's lost. A lot of people don't have the money saved in first and foremost to be able to get to that $1 million. So that's why I just want to kind of refocus you and understand that in your planning process, it is important that, yes, you understand, what a stock, what a bond is, and how to, tackle student loan debt, things of that nature. But I want to encourage you to save for yourself first and foremost and put yourself first. You hear that countless of time when people say, pay yourself first. And that's why this is so important, because Uncle Sam still got his and he's going to get his. The mortgage company, the car company, they have plenty of money and they're going to get theirs. So why shouldn't you have a larger portion of what you bring home of that $6 million pool of money? Does that make sense? And then the other thing, feel free to type in the chat box. If you think about all the things that we bring into our universe, we're going to have a car that when we purchased that. We have our diploma on the wall that gives us right to earn more money because we've proven that we can learn. But then we also going to have the home, and a home, it might be one of your most expensive purchases for a lot of people, and it'd be a great place for us to actually accumulate wealth. A lot of times, home ownership. But a quick question I want to ask everybody. Feel free to type in the chat box. What do you think right now is your most important asset? If you're talking about home, car, anything, as far as think about right now, what do you feel is your most important asset? And anybody, feel free to type in the chat box. All right. A lot of people would say home. And it is a very important asset. But I want to challenge you to say that I think your most important asset is your ability to earn this income. So over the course of your life, I told you you're going to be a millionaire, but that is based upon the fact of you being able to continue to work your entire, over that 43 years. But why we talked about, when we looked at our first illustration, if we can go back to our first illustration, when we talked about the first step is protect your todays. You have $6 million that's coming to you in the future. If you walked out to your garage right now and you had a machine in your garage, and every single day or every single year that machine produced machine produced $55,000 on an annual basis, would you insure that machine? Well, you do. Most time you walk out to that garage, we get into a car that's $35,000, $40,000 and it's fully insured. But the machine that drives that car is not insured properly. You are that machine that's producing $55,000 that pays for all your lifestyle. And I want to say congratulations to someone, Gabrielle said health. And yeah, that's correct. Health gives you the ability to earn. As long as you're healthy, you can go to work and you can earn an income. So if you protect that income, that's why it's so important to be the first step in our journey and actually accumulating and building wealth. So I want to encourage you, when you talk about you sitting down in these employee benefits meeting, pay attention to what you actually have. Because even your employer knows it's so important that they protect your earning potential, that they give you a benefit that a lot of us don't even pay attention to. And that benefit is, disability income, and it covers your income in the event that you can't work. We all know about life insurance, but rarely do we talk about disability income. But 9 times out of 10, it says 66 2/3% of your income, and it's a tax benefit. And when we talked about the thing about taxes, so at the end of the day, if you become injured and you're making, say, $5,000 per month, you're only going to receive 40% of that, which is $2,000 on a monthly basis. So you go from making 5 to making 2. So making sure you're insured above and beyond that is so crucial, and assuring that we continue to have a self-completing plan. Because if we don't work, we can't do what we need to do. We can't pay the student loans. We can't pay for the house, somebody come to get the car. So all our life tends to fall apart if we aren't protected properly. So that's why it's so important to have a plan that we call self-completing. We have to have the money on the balance sheet in order to do the next thing, but making sure that we protect and making sure you pay attention to what you actually have at work is important. The next biggest mistake people make is, at work they have some form of life insurance, and the average individual will leave work and never use that policy, become older, put some stuff in their medical file, and can't get coverage in the future or have a very small amount. So you work over 43 years, and a lot of things we want to do, we want to leave to the next generation, and all we can leave to the next generation is $100,000. That's not fair. So making sure that we take those preemptive steps in the beginning is important in protection, and that's why we talked about protection first and how that is paramount. And when we are actually developing our plan, is protecting that $6 million that is going to hit our balance sheet and is going to be so important in the future. Next thing, I'm going to kind of change gears and talk a little bit. We talked a bit about savings, but just our decision-making process. Some of the two of the major debts that you're going to have in your life, of course, are your student loan. And just to talk briefly about that, a lot of times we choose to refinance, debts. We always tend to do that. And student loans is probably, for some of us, is one of our largest debts besides our home. And then cars is next. But I hate to sound like a broken record, but a lot of times you talk to professionals and they say, and you ask, what's the best decision? And you say, well, it depends. It depends on many variables. A lot of times we refinance it to get a lower interest rate, but we lose some of the protections of having a federally backed student loan. A lot of times when your student loan is federally backed, and times like now, it's COVID, it's become real, individuals needed to actually defer or their student loan payments. And the government, gave a lot of provisions to allow you to not pay student loan payments during COVID. But if you think about it, if you had a private loan, this is a private institution, a lot of them people are still burdened with having to make some student loan payments during times like this. When you pass away, reading the fine print, making sure if you had a federal student loan, it goes away when you pass away. Some of these private loans, you have to read the fine print and understand that sometimes we're still burdened with some of that debt. So always the question of a lower interest rate is not the most important answer. And to actually share a little bit more and in real time how the lowest interest rate is not always the best answer, I want to share you my screen with something else I prepared for you, because typically when I said student loan is the biggest thing and a home purchase is typically like the next biggest thing that we actually have on our balance sheet, and we try to make a decision. Should I get a 15-year mortgage or should I get a 30-year mortgage? And most individuals will always say, I get a 15-year mortgage because you lower the interest rate and you lower the amount of time you're actually paying for the loan. And, my answer to that question is, once again, it depends. But a lot of times, just starting out in your career, we have to be mindful of our cash flow. And our cash flow is the money that we see every single day to take care of our responsibilities. And having our cash flow free to take care of responsibilities and to save is so important. So sometimes it makes more sense to get a 30-year mortgage where you stretch the time out over a longer period of time. You pay a lower monthly payment, but you're going to pay more in interest over the life of the actual loan. So, oops, excuse me, technical difficulties. All right. So if you look at the screen now, I prepared something in advance. If you look at $160,000, a lot of times that's your first home. I got it titled The Coop because we're all Gamecocks here. So if you got that first home and you paid $160,000 for that home, of course we have the whip I have down here. That's the Maserati you buy, but it's not gonna be $35,000. And the YOY, that's your student loan. These are some of the things that's going to make our way on our balance sheet throughout our course of our life. But if I did this just to illustrate one thing. If you had a $160,000 mortgage, and just say you had a 3.5% interest rate, your monthly payment would be about $561. That's something that's manageable. If you took that same loan and you got a 15-year note, so 15 years is 180 months. And typically for getting a shorter time period, the bank will grant you a lower interest rate. So that's why you went from 3.5 to 3%. Yeah, you won. So if you look at what you actually did on paper, you saved about $150,000 in interest. And that's what most people say, all right, I'm out. But I want to challenge you to ask more questions, dig deeper. Talk to some individuals to help understand this process because it's important. I'm not going to say it's a right or wrong answer, but I'm going to give you some information, some tools to show you. If you look at the calculator, the difference between $500, do some quick math right now, $561,000 and $561 and $1,101, that's $544 per month that you would be paying more for a 15-year note. So that kind of restricts, just starting out, it may restrict your cash flow a little bit. But let's take a look at what that is on an annual basis. On an annual basis, that is $6,528 if you did it on a monthly basis. If you were to take those same dollars that you were putting in your home and you just say you invested and got 5% rate of return, I'm using very conservative numbers, over a 15-year period, you have $147,000 approximately in cash. These aren't guarantees, but that's the assumption of getting 5% rate of return. You have $147,000 in cash. And my question to you, is it right or is it wrong? It matters. You have $147,000 of cash in your pocket, or you would rather have a paid off note in 15 years. Just me personally, I don't mind continuing having that debt on our balance sheet if I have cash in my pocket. Because what happens if 15 years from now you need some additional capital? A lot of times the way people get it is they tap into their home value. But now you're creating another note. You have to refinance and go through that process again rather than having the cash flow on your balance sheet to do whatever you want to do. Not one is right nor one is wrong, but if you look at the balance sheet, you're in the same place. But I'd rather be in that place with $150,000 in my pocket than in that place with all of it tied up into my home. So that drives home the point that there's not a right or wrong, but there is an understanding of what you're getting into and how it affects your overall cash flow and how it's going to affect your future. And if you took that same thing over 30 years, putting that money away, if you consistently did that, you have $450,000, a little over $450,000 of cash, and you have a paid off house at the same time. So that's a great position to be in. A lot of people say, yeah, but if I paid it off early, then I can take that money and I can start investing. That's not a bad premise, but at the same time, we got to understand that when we talked about events going to happen in life where we're going to need to take advantage of opportunity, having that cash on hand and in the bank and able to reinvest or invest is sometimes for some individuals providing them a lot more security and peace of mind than actually having the house paid off. So I want to, like I said, I'm sorry I'm pushing up against time, but I want to actually give you something that is meaningful, that that you can go in and implement today. So all this, what I'm talking about, if you notice, it's about balance. It's not a right or wrong, but it's about balance and understanding where we should be, what our finances look like. And it starts by sitting down, talking to somebody who understands, and writing it down. Those people who write things down often accomplish things a lot more than those people who don't. So have a written plan. A lot of individuals spend more time planning a vacation than they do actually talking about their finances. And they go on this vacation every single year, but they only address their finances when there's a problem. So I want to encourage you to think about and address these finances early on and often. And not just when there's a problem, but address them when there is no problem, because you can think with more clarity, you can think with more understanding, and you can have a better vision for the future when it's not clouded by the problems of the present. So this is, I encourage you, like I say, first and foremost, just go out there and stop putting things off. A lot of people know what to do, but doing is what really allows you freedom. I've made mistakes. I continue to make mistakes. We all have. So I want to give you permission to make mistakes, but realize that in life, there must be balance. And even though you make mistakes, you have margins of safety. And that's where saving is so important, to provide a margin of safety. But if you see the screen that I share with you now, it's just a simple, what we use when we're planning, an MRI, I would say. It's like a doctor look at the x-rays, and they can look at and they can point out certain things and see where the problem areas are. And this is what we use when we are actually planning. And the typical individual, just starting out, you think about they may not have any personal property, but they may have about $5,000 in savings, not much in investment. They started putting stuff in retirement because 401k is pretty much their largest asset. That's the first house we actually have. So these are things how they're going to be on our balance sheet. And life is about balance. But what people neglect to pay attention to is what we talked about before, is the cash flow. This is how things get on the balance sheet. You earn money. It gets on your balance sheet through the check you have. You comes in every single day, and you're either buying assets or liabilities. And the more liabilities that you have, the lower your net worth is going to be. And the key to is building this net worth to the point, at some point, that net worth take care of you. You've been taking care of everybody else. You've been taking care of the mortgage company, the light company, the Maserati company, everybody. So take care of yourself. Pay yourself first. That's what is so important. So when we're sitting down, this helps us pull in all the various areas of planning, and not just the balance sheet, but also we talked about how protection is so key. This is just, a lot of missed opportunity is a lot of individuals have, property and casualty, that's your home and your auto insurance, but they don't insure themselves for excess liability, what called an umbrella policy, essentially covering you in the case sometimes you do get sued. You may be driving a car and hit somebody. They can't go back to work. They don't have disability. The next place they're going is to the attorney. Why? Because every time you turn your TV on, this attorney say, if you get in an accident, call me. If they can't get it from you, they're going to come get it from your check. So investigate. Just getting an umbrella policy is very inexpensive. Talk to whoever you have your home and your auto with, you can get $1 million worth of umbrella policy for very, very little. And also evaluating your deductibles is key. You have property and casualty insurance, but a lot of times people have a $500 deductible, but they'll never make a $500 claim. So why have a $500 deductible? Why not raise it to something that you wouldn't be willing to pay for? If it's $1,500 and it hurts your pocket, raise it to $1,500. It lowers your insurance costs. With that difference, you can actually buy an umbrella policy. Secondly, you're talking about if you get sick or injured, having health insurance, having disability, that's key. Understanding what you have at work is key. Having wills and trusts. I can do a great job of building your net worth, but how do you transfer it to the next generation? How does it get off your balance sheet and avoid going to probate and tied up for 9 months in probate, paying attorney to do X, Y, and Z by just having wills, trusts, and things that put in place. And then also, you know, in the event that you're not here, that $6 million is going to mean a lot to your family. How much of it do you want to leave on the balance sheet for the family to come? So those things are some important factors to actually evaluate and to think about when you're actually doing it. You know, you're sitting down thinking about your finances. It's not right or wrong, but it's really asking great questions and understanding. And for that, I'm going to change gears and allow you to ask questions, because I will continue to talk because there's so many other topics that we can touch on. So I'm going to open the floor up at this point at questions. So feel free to type some questions in the chat box. I may not have enough time to answer all your questions right now. Those that I can, I'll provide you with my contact information so you can reach out and I can answer any questions that you may have I'm not able to answer right now. So the floor is yours. All right.
Well, thank you so much, Hassan, for joining us today. What a fantastic presentation. Definitely some tips that we can all implement for our financial futures. We are going to take about a 2-minute break, and then we'll be back to introduce our next set of speakers. So be right back, everyone. Thanks, Hassan. All right, everyone, we are going to kick off our next session on finding community in a new city. So it's my pleasure to get to introduce our hosts for this session, Kate and Jose Monda. So Kate graduated in 2010 with a BA in psychology and was a Gamecock cheerleader from 2006 to 2010 and a member of Chi Omega fraternity. She has a career in business development, sales, and program implementation for the staffing and recruiting industry. Kate is currently a program director for Midlands, a workforce solutions company aiming to open the work ecosystem to those who traditionally face systematic bias. She has been a board member of the Charlotte Gamecock Club for 7+ years, helping to bridge the gap between the city she grew up in, her home of Charlotte, North Carolina, and the over 14,000 Gamecock alumni that reside there. And Jose graduated in 2011 with a BA in sociology. A Gamecock baseball player, Jose was a part of the 2010 and 2011 national championship teams. Jose has a career in talent acquisition and is currently leading the Southeast for Salome Consulting recruiting efforts. Born and raised in Miami, Florida, Jose has firsthand knowledge of finding community in a new city. He has over 7 years of experience in talent acquisition, 4+ years as a husband, 1+ years as a father, and 30+ years of being disappointed in the Miami Dolphins. So thank you both for joining us today.
Perfect. Thank you for having us.
Here we will share our screen. Or do you have the presentation? There we go. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much for having us today, you guys. Again, my name is Kate Monda. I was a cheerleader at South Carolina and graduated back in 2010 with a degree in psychology and was able to take that into the sales and business development corporate world. And I've been in the staffing and recruiting industries for a majority of my career. Go to the next slide, please. Perfect. Yep, so 9+ years into business development and sales, 7+ years in recruiting and staffing. I do serve on the Gamecock Club board here in Charlotte. We have 14,000 alumni, so I'm lucky I was able to return to the city that I grew up in after graduating and really been able to work on bridging that gap between the alumni that we have here and just be able to see that network of connections grow within the city. And then this is my husband, Jose.
Yeah, my name's Jose Mata. There was already an introduction, so I don't want to go through too much, but born and raised in Miami, went to South Carolina, graduated in 2011, met this woman right here, and now we've been married for almost 5 years. Based out of Charlotte, really excited to be speaking about this topic because finding new community in a city that you've never lived in, really barely visited, was important to me, and just very excited to talk about it with everyone here. So next slide, please. So first thing is, when we're talking about finding community in a new city, it's the why. Why do I need to develop and find community in a new city? And kind of the first thing really is networking opportunities and developing connections. Building a network of graduates really increases the amount of people that you'll meet and meet in your new kind of city. So most schools offer many chances for alumni to rub shoulders, at games, socials, or events like galas and community service functions. So not only is this a great way to mingle and enjoy yourself, but it's also a perfect opportunity to just expand that professional network and professional connections to meet new people. The second thing would just be staying informed. Do you want to stay in the know? When you leave school, the easiest way to stay in the loop is becoming an alumni member. And this is for career opportunities, and networking events really are the two biggest reasons to join. So when we talk about news about college rankings, athletics, or honestly just new research, it always hits the alumni magazines and newsletters first.
One time, actually, during the Spurrier years, we were able to get a private Q&A with former quarterback coach G.A. Mangus, and we were able to ask specific questions about the recruits that they were hiring. So it was really cool. We had to like drop our phones off at the front whenever we went into the room. They wouldn't let you write anything down. Super secretive because the information just wasn't in the blogs yet. So it was an awesome way to be able to lead into football season.
And then the second thing on here we have listed is, getting the most out of your degree. And when I think about that, I think about increasing the value of your degree. And how do you do that? It's actually a little bit, it's simple. So according to different reports of college ratings, alumni engagement is one of the ways that universities are ranked. So when you join a school's alumni network and organization, it helps increase the school's reputation. By doing that, it makes the degree even more valuable, which I consider a win-win, because you're not just paying for your education, your classes, the knowledge, and that piece of paper that say you graduated. You've paid for the alumni and the network that comes with it. So use it.
Yeah, and obviously a big part as well is going to be giving back. Joining an alumni association is the easiest way to give back to your school. These types of endeavors, like what we're doing right now, or so many events that just happen in Columbia, or potentially new buildings and fun workout rooms or weight rooms. These endeavors wouldn't be possible without the financial support of alumni donations. So obviously financially is a way that you can contribute and give back, but also time. In the future, you'll be helping graduates just like yourself, just like we're doing today. So, I know that here in Charlotte, we do welcome events for incoming freshmen, different things like that to be able to give back. And what was important for me was not only just giving back to the University of South Carolina, but also getting involved in charity events in that new city. So you continue to be able to get involved with the new city that you've moved into. So for me, being able to give back to my city of Charlotte was really important for me personally. On top of that, the connections and relationships, the community that you make in your new city, it sticks with you all the way to the future. Those relationships you build really last a lifetime. Things change, people switch jobs, you might move cities, you might get married, have kids, whatever the case, don't do any of that, whatever the case may be. Through all of that, your connection to the university it'll remain. And you never know when the person you meet today is going to be the person that helps you in a jam 10 years from now, or vice versa. You don't know who you will need in the future. I think if COVID has taught us anything, it's that community engagement is so important, and you really don't know when you're going to need somebody else.
So the next thing is, it's an easy way to get involved in your new city. And there's so many different ways to get involved, but, I'll tell a story about myself. Like I said, I'm from Miami and moved to Charlotte with only a few people that I knew. It was really my girlfriend at the time and a few neighbors of mine that lived in the retreat. So with that said, these social clubs and alumni networks really gave me an outlet to find community. So whether that was watching sports games, so I'm big into sports, but going to finding a local Gamecock Club bar, to be honest with you, when it comes to watching sports and these different events, I learned about the club and the watch parties that they threw, and it really helped me find peace and friendship in a new city that all had something in common, and that was enjoying South Carolina and being fans.
Yeah, being able to have some sort of familiarity is always really helpful. And then last, it's super fun. So there's a lot that we do. I'll show you some pictures on the next few slides of some of the events that we do here in Charlotte, so you can kind of get an idea of how we spend our time. But first, we do want to cover how to get involved in the first place. So next slide.
So I know, we're probably starting this conversation, and there's a few of you on the call that are saying, Jose, Kate, I'm moving very far away from Columbia. Where I'm from, there are no Gamecock alumni there. Well, here's a list. So first of all, there's over 20,000+ alumni network members, 310,000 living alumni. And on this list, there is 48 active local clubs available. Of those 48, 46 are in the United States. One is in Germany and one is in London. So even if you're going across the ocean, I would say you can still find
Across the
community across the pond, sorry. So I would advise, look for your city in the map. If there's an alumni network or alumni group, go, please join it. If there isn't one, boost your resume and start one. Actually, I cut off a photo before under this, this list. It says create one. So anyone, any alumni can go and create their own group if for some reason the city that you're moving to or the area you're moving to doesn't have one. As I said, 20,000+ members, 310,000 living alumni. There are Gamecocks everywhere. And then the list right here, this is actually from the UofSC alumni.org website. So highly recommend, I'm gonna have the link at the end of this presentation, but go on the website. It provides you with all the information you need, how to sign up, all of that fun stuff. So next slide, please. Yes, update your contact information. So we thought if there was one thing that's important for you to remember about this presentation, I know you're getting a whole day's worth of people speaking via Zoom, but if there's one thing that you can remember about what we're discussing is this title. When you move, please update your internal contact information with the school. That is how you receive any information about any local clubs, activities, and just cool things to join. So, you know, for most graduates, honestly, me included, their parents or home address was listed internally, and you'll only be receiving mail and email for that specific location about any local things happening. So as I said, I was only getting Miami Gamecock information at the time while living in Charlotte. So once I updated to show Charlotte, North Carolina as my hometown, that's how I learned what was finally going on, and I was able to just do more. If you really want the benefits of everything Alumni Network can provide, please update your information once it's done. It'll be the best and easiest thing you do as a part of this.
Yeah, I think it had like even my old email address, like my Yahoo email address from when I had AIM back. I guess I'm aging myself, but so definitely making sure that contact information is up to date. That's definitely the biggest takeaway.
Next slide, please.
Perfect. So we're wanting to highlight some just different events that our club here in Charlotte has done. There's something for everyone here, from social outings, business networking events, or if none of that is of interest to you, perhaps one of the philanthropic events to give back. I know that we're speaking a lot about Charlotte, but it's what we know. And we've gotten a lot of inspiration from other clubs around the country. So this is just to give you an idea of the types of events that you could expect with your local alumni group, no matter where you are, and some ideas to take with you. So on this side, we have social events. So we have wine and design, we do cooking classes, we've done jewelry making classes. We did a specific like Gamecock trivia night, and Todd Ellis came and hosted. That was a blast. On here, we have photos of the wine and design. We have yoga. One of the things that I love is, because we're an ACC country here in Charlotte, we do an SEC bash where we partner up with the Florida Alumni Network and the Vanderbilt Alumni Network, and then we throw a huge tailgate right before football season starts. A little bit of SEC camaraderie there. Really, really fun to be able to kind of meet some of the people who care about the Southeastern Conference. Of course, we have tons of watch parties. I'd say that's probably the most popular thing that we do, is jumping on the table when your basketball team makes it into the Sweet 16. So those types of social events. And then of course, this top right here, we actually have a photo of a brewery tour in Charlotte. Jose, why don't you tell a little story about that specific photo right there?
Yeah, so I've discussed a few stories about me moving to a new city, not really knowing too many people, and going to these events and finding new friends. And yeah, that's a fun photo of, I think, about 5 years ago. I'm that guy in the polo on the right with a backwards cap, and we went to this. It was a brewery tour across Charlotte. If you're familiar with Charlotte, we have way too many. So we do a brewery tour. Honestly, about yearly, we do about one of them. And this specific one, I got to know the person there on the bottom right with a white t-shirt and a backwards hat as well. And we started speaking, found out that he actually is also a Miami Dolphins fan. So we share in that disappointment. But what ended up happening was I was actually unhappy at my job at the moment, and he and his company were hiring. Spent an afternoon kind of with him and the group, and by the end of it, he said, "Hey, Jose, look, please, like let's set up a time to talk after this. Would love to help you get on board with my company." And sure enough, I took his advice. I did the interviews, and I got the job, and I was there for 6.5 years.
Yeah.
6.5 years, and it really started my kind of professional growth into talent acquisition. So I'm very grateful for the alumni network, and very grateful for these events, because it's honestly put me in a place that I never thought I'd be. And honestly, a big reason I'm probably speaking with you right here was because of how it's affected me.
Yeah. So even some of these social events, you still might pick up some business on the side. So cool. Next slide, please. So we have tons of business events as well. Of course, just like we mentioned, not all of it happens at a bar. Here you can see we were really lucky that the Darla Moore School of Business hosted their centennial networking event here in Charlotte, North Carolina, at a local country club. That's a picture of Mo Brown. He played football under Spurrier, giving a presentation, just actually ran for Congress recently. And so that's him giving a presentation during that Darla Moore event. We have the PMBA program that's listed, or that is located in what we call Uptown Charlotte. And so we are able to do business morning breakfast networking speaker series. So we've had executives from Bank of America who are former Gamecocks come and talk about like what's made them successful. We even had this was one of my favorites, the dietitian or the nutritionist, I'm sorry, for the Carolina Panthers. She came and spoke about just like overall health and wellness and positive affirmations and achieving your goals. It was phenomenal. And so just being able to get some face time with Gamecocks who've really been able to be successful in their prospective jobs and industries is a great opportunity as well, and really fun to be able to learn and connect with those people. Last slide, please. And of course, we have philanthropic events as well. So we volunteer every year with the Salvation Army. We pick up trash around the greenways. We volunteer at local animal shelters. That's very popular because everybody loves bathing puppies. Who doesn't? So we do an annual golf tournament. You can see some photos here from that where the proceeds to the annual golf tournament go towards giving scholarships to kids from Charlotte who are wanting to go to the University of South Carolina. So it helps them get that reduced tuition so that it's much more cost effective for them to get a degree and become a Gamecock just like us. So those are a couple of the things that we do every single year. We're always looking for new ideas. And so, needless to say, however you would want to get involved within your city with your alumni group, it can be done. So we have covered why to get involved, how to do so, a few ideas of what we do, and I hope that this all gets you energized about the future and staying connected to the university in your next endeavors.
Could you go to the next slide, please? So, one of the things that I think is really important about this whole presentation and the hows, we've given a lot of information, obviously updating your contact information. These are two really important links. If this gets shared afterwards, or if you write it down, UofSCalumni.org is where you're going to find a ton of information about those local chapters, as well as how to become a part of one, how to start one, and honestly, any information you need. We actually have a ton of affinity groups as well associated with the school that has been recently added to the program. So definitely there's a lot for you to uncover as an alumni, and it's very important that you stay involved, and honestly you pick it how you want to do it. I think everyone has different levels of engagement when it comes to the alumni network, but it's so important to just utilize it because that's a part of your degree. It's not just the paper, it really is the people that come with it and the neighborhoods you kind of go into. So with that said, please connect with us on LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn, I would highly recommend create one. When we talk about business networking as a whole, LinkedIn's a really good place to do that. If you're moving to Charlotte or honestly anywhere in the Southeast, definitely connect with us too. We'd love to help you out in your career endeavors, connections endeavors, whatever that is. Thank you so much for having us here and listening to us for about 20 minutes. We're very passionate about this topic, very passionate about the school. And honestly, we're open to any questions at this time. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. You can go next slide. It has our, I could just put it in the chat. It has our LinkedIn links so you can connect with us.
Yeah, we had one more slide. That's great.
I think so, yeah. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so please connect with us on please connect with us on LinkedIn. Thank you guys so much. Well, yeah, I mean, we're super passionate about what the university did for us while we were in school and what it continues to do for us after.
So is there any questions at all? Put in the chat, or if you just want to get on video and ask, we have no problem with that either. Well, you want to answer that one?
Oh my goodness. What is our favorite Charlotte Gamecock event? I mean, what would you say? Like of all time and like since I lived in Charlotte, or just like annually, I would say the golf tournament. It's always a blast. It's always one. I mean, I'm, a Gamecock from Charlotte, so it's nice to be able to see more people from like my high school or the local high schools here be able to go to South Carolina and take a chance at an SEC school and not stay in ACC country. I would say the most fun or my favorite moment was when we went to the Sweet 16. I mean, we have a Gamecock bar and it was wild. I mean, it was wild. So I think it was wild no matter where you were in the country. If you were a Gamecock, you were loving that moment. So
I would probably say for me, my favorite events are we're able to get a lot of the coaching staffs at our events. So Ray Tanner is at a lot of our functions. We've done a lot of events with Will Muschamp. We did a lot of events with Frank Martin. So we've done in the past whenever Charlotte would play, whenever South Carolina would play in Charlotte specifically, we would do like a bash the night before the games. So I know a few years ago, right before the game, Frank Martin, Muschamp, Tanner, they all came through. It was a big party and they were there, gave us shake hands and get one-on-one time. I've met obviously Coach Tanner, but Frank Martin's somebody I'd never met before. So that was really cool to speak to him. But that was probably my favorite event that I've been to.
We even had some like really fun and prominent like Gamecock football alumni like Darian Stewart. Obviously Mo always comes to our events, Tori Gurley. It was really nice to be able to kind of see all these people come through.
Definitely.
Come back through.
And Gabriel, that's great that you're looking forward to out of Rock Hill. There is, like I said, the Charlotte Gamecock Club that's really prominent. There's also Gamecock clubs and alumni networks that are in the South Carolina area, probably closer to you in Rock Hill. We all kind of work together.
Yeah, I think there's
awesome.
York County Gamecock Club. And so they definitely do their own thing, but we work together for a lot of our events too, just because Charlotte's the biggest metro.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for your time today. What great insight into the Charlotte Gamecocks Club. So if any of you all are recent graduates in that area or moving there once you graduate, definitely reach out and join some of their events. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will take another 5-minute break and then we'll be back for our final session today. So hang tight, we'll be back with you in just about 5 minutes.
So our next speaker is Steve Curtwright, and he's been at the University of South Carolina Alumni Association since July of 2018. Steve's current role includes overseeing affiliate group initiatives, supporting alumni club programs, association advocacy efforts, and planning the inaugural Alumni Association golf tournament this summer. Prior to joining the Alumni Association team, Steve oversaw the operations of the UofSC Greek Village. He lives in Columbia with his wife, son, and 2 pugs, Dottie and Pancakes. He enjoys spending his weekends behind the barbecue or trying new breweries.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone, please be seated. Seriously, thank you for the ovation, but let's get serious. We gotta get working here. Appreciate the introduction. As Alyssa said, my name is Steve Curtwright. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, but if we could real quick, just put in the chat box here. If you know where you're going after college, after you graduate, go ahead and put that in there. I'm just curious to see if everyone's staying in state, in Columbia, or maybe going abroad. And then can everyone see my screen? All right. For some reason, I cannot see the chat, but I'll get there in a minute. Okay. So as mentioned, my name is Steve Curtwright. I oversee our affiliate group programming, including our alumni clubs. One of my greatest passions is traveling, and I get to see Gamecocks all over the country. I think I've been to about 30 locations since starting this position. Really love it. And my favorite part about it is connecting Gamecocks, because everything is just so darn positive with Gamecocks. It doesn't matter, how our football team's doing, how great Coach Staley is, and the women's basketball team. Gamecocks always want to connect with each other. It doesn't matter if it's in San Francisco or Boston, Massachusetts, or even London and Germany. Gamecocks want to connect, and which is why we have these clubs. As you can see, we have, as mentioned, well over 40 clubs in the United States and 2 in Europe. You can see where kind of our concentration of clubs is. It's in the greater Southeast and up the East Coast. Which is fantastic, but you can also see we're all throughout. We're on the West Coast, and we are starting new clubs as well all the time. Our latest is Chattanooga. They just started up, so if anyone's heading up that way, you have a brand new club there. We're also looking at clubs, bringing back Asheville, West Palm Beach, really anywhere where Gamecocks want to connect. So let's say you end up in Omaha, Nebraska. Well, we don't have a Gamecock group in Huskerland there, but we have over 300 alumni in Omaha. So we're just really looking for the alumni volunteers who want to kind of get that thing rolling, which is really exciting. So if you end up anywhere like that and you're interested in starting up a group, hit me up. Let me know. We're always interested in expanding our network and helping Gamecocks connect. And that kind of brings us to the question, though, of why are we doing this? We have clubs all over the country. We're always growing. It's simple. Alumni bring the University of South Carolina to their cities, and alumni club chairs especially do this. Our club chairs are great points of contact for information from the university. They're kind of the liaison from the university to their city. As such, alumni can reach out to their club chairs if they're looking to network in the area, maybe meet some Gamecocks, attend events, or get involved with the club. But also, if you're looking for information from the university, they're a great person to reach out to first. Then they can kind of test that out to different folks around the campus. No matter the size of the population of Gamecocks in the area, though, we always have ways to get involved. Now, prior to COVID, our most popular things were game viewings, as the Monda mentioned in the last presentation. Game viewings, professional network events, aka happy hours. Those have been our most popular events. But since the COVID, our clubs are still able to provide that engagement necessary, which has been fantastic. So that's been through Zoom, like today. I'm sure we're all Zoomed out, but this is still providing a great way to connect with alumni. The Atlanta Gamecocks just had Provost William Tate on recently, and he did a great presentation. It's actually just this week, kind of about what his plans are for the near future and how alumni can get involved. You can just see we have all kinds of events. We're definitely going to get into that later. But also one of the main reasons to get involved with clubs is they are a great way to give back to the institution, to your community, or even provide scholarships. So we have 6 of our clubs that have endowments. 2 of them are fully endowed, DC and Charlotte, and then the other ones are raising money currently for their endowment. So it's a great way to give back. Those endowments typically go to students that live in their area and provide a little bit of financial aid for those students as they are on campus here in Columbia. So very exciting there. I cannot say it's enough. Find your club, just find them. They're out there. They're pretty easy to find on social media. The best way to find a club is through their Facebook is probably number 1. So go ahead and just type in the city name and then Gamecocks after that. Easy way to find them. There are a few exceptions there. So we have 2 clubs in South Carolina that are county clubs. It's Horry County Gamecocks, that's Myrtle Beach and Conway, and Georgetown Gamecocks, which is Murrells Inlet. And then we have 2 in North Carolina. I've been told that if you know, you know, the Triad Gamecocks and the Triangle Gamecocks that encapsulate those 3 cities up in North Carolina. But they're easy to find, and our clubs are great at kind of telling what they're all about with what they post on social media, right? So if they have a lot of events, they're going to post pictures. One club I always suggest following, the Charlotte Gamecocks. They are very active on social media. DC, Boston as well. Just find those clubs that are kind of posting a lot. That kind of gives you an idea of what their events look like. But once we kind of get past this whole COVID thing, I would expect game views to be back in full swing and other networking events as well. But our clubs have been really active still on Zoom. Our largest clubs are, in terms of population of Gamecocks, obviously the Columbia Alumni Group, the Columbia Gamecocks. They have a bunch of alumni. they're here, but also in state, they typically are the biggest. Charleston, Greenville, Spartanburg all have a huge base of alumni to work with. But out of state, Charlotte is hands down our largest and one of our most active clubs we have. Atlanta is another one, just massive amounts of alumni that want to connect. They want to do fun events. Like they just had that virtual event with Provost Tate. They have a lot of fun stuff coming up too. But New York City, we have a large group in New York City. They actually have their own bar called the Mason Jar that is specifically for Gamecocks on game day. So if you're ever in New York City, maybe you're just traveling through, or maybe you live in the area, go check them out. It's a really special place. And then DC Gamecocks as well. We have a large contingent of alumni living in DC. That just because they have the largest amount of Gamecocks there does not mean that our other clubs are not active. The Nashville Gamecocks, for example, have only about 400 to 500 alumni living in Nashville, but they turn out their game game parties all the time. They regularly, before COVID, of course, had well over 100 people at their game viewings. So check that out if you're just going through Nashville, or if you're just in an area with a club. That's probably the best way to get to know them, is going on our social media. If they have a game viewing for the weekend, go check that out. San Diego is another one, for example. So it's not all just kind of in the Southeast. A lot of our clubs out West, our Texas clubs, they always have something going on for alumni, especially when it comes to Gamecock athletics. And get involved. Clubs are a great way for new people to come on. Most of our clubs are looking for new board members. They're really excited about younger alumni coming on board too. It's a great way to connect and bridge the gap between generations that might exist there. It's great for networking too if you can get on the board. A lot of our clubs have positions that they're always open to provide, or have subcommittee positions as well. So check that out. It's a great networking opportunity, but it's also a fun volunteer opportunity. I do say for our more active clubs, plan about 3 to 4 hours a month of time. That might increase if you're doing it like Charlotte. They do a large golf tournament. They're probably putting a little more time in that month, but expect about 3 to 4 hours if you're going to be a volunteer member on one of the boards there. Of course, we have other avenues for engagement if you want to get involved with the Alumni Association. Our Board of Governors is our governing board of alumni. They oversee all things Alumni Association. They represent alumni in every district in South Carolina. But we also have members who are at large, maybe across the state and New York as well, out of state as well too. We're just not just in state, so they're well represented there. We also have affinity councils. the Black Alumni Council, the Veterans Alumni Council, the LGBTQ plus Alumni Council, and a couple interest groups, the Young Alumni Council and Marching Band, which is kind of fun, new one as well. They exist to connect alumni with shared backgrounds or experiences across the country. So they're not location bound necessarily, but they do have representatives in each one of our largest markets. And of course, here in Columbia as well. You know, they're doing programs and events. They have money for scholarships that they raise for as well. Most important thing to note there, these programs and events are open to all Gamecocks, just like all of our club events. It doesn't necessarily mean alumni. It could just be fans of the school, friends of the school, parents, things like that. And then we have the impact advocates, or as I like to call them, the artists formerly known as the Carolina Action Network. That is a Prince joke, and I highly doubt anyone here got that, but that's okay. Look up Prince, he was great. Our impact advocates are a network of Gamecocks, so not just alumni. Could be, like I said earlier, fans of the school, parents, just people who are passionate about the university. And they share the importance of what we're doing here, our mission at the university and the Alumni Association with our elected officials. That right now tends to be state, centered on our state elected officials. However, we are looking at potentially growing that to federal level and then getting more involved with our local level as well. Stay tuned, we're very excited about it. And outside the association, we have partnerships all across campus and abroad. A lot of our clubs work with the Gamecock Club. We work with them all the time for events, especially the Matt has mentioned pre-games for Charlotte. We get together all the time with Gamecock Club and the university to provide pre-gaming tailgates kind of thing for maybe away football games. We're excited to bring that back this fall with our Gamecocks on the road. We're going to try and hit up every away game. Hopefully we all keep getting our vaccines, masking up and keeping distance so we can bring back some normalcy there and get out and see our alumni prior to those away games, because they are some of the funnest events out there. And our clubs oftentimes will partner up as well on these opportunities for us and get to host some of those things. So for example, when we went to Ole Miss a couple of years back, the closest club we had was the Memphis Gamecocks. So they had a fun event the night before in Memphis on their fun little road there. And then the next day they all went down to the game together. Just a lot of fun opportunities there. Make sure you catch that if you're out and about, or if you're just traveling to an away game. Always look up what the Alumni Association is doing. We got your back on those fun things. Colleges and schools also will come through and reach out to our clubs. So Moore School a lot of times will come through, and our clubs get to partner up with them. College of Arts and Sciences, College of Education. Our clubs are always down to partner with different schools that might be coming through. But I think the most popular events are the SEC partnerships. So we have a club, just to give you an example, in Austin, Texas Gamecocks. They're great. They alternate hosts for an SEC happy hour once a week. And that brings out a lot of folks because, we know that in the SEC, you're still kind of a tight-knit group if you're outside of the SEC kind of region there. So that's been great for like the Kansas City Gamecocks, St. Louis Gamecocks, Chicago. They do an annual flag football tournament for SEC alumni only. And we are the reigning, defending, undisputed champions of the flag football tournament for the SEC alumni in Chicago. I say that knowing that they didn't have it last fall, but I'm assuming we're coming back strong to defend our crown this fall as well. And then, of course, it's always fun to beat up on little brother. Clemson, they like to challenge us sometimes, some of our alumni clubs. They came for the Charleston Gamecocks. They had a challenge to raise food for a food bank in the area, and every person that brought in a donation got a free beer. They came together at an event. It was a great time. Of course, our group brought in more canned food donations to benefit the Food Bank of Charleston, and everyone, Clemson and Carolina, got along at the event. It was a lot of fun, but that kind of competition brought out a lot of folks, and those type of events are the things that our clubs just love doing, and you see a lot of that. So we kind of talked about all these groups. What do they all have in common? What are these things? You see here the event we had at ZAWS. We had BAC, VAC, YAC, and the Columbia Gamecocks all together night before a football game. They all want to get to know fellow Gamecocks. They want to connect with you, especially recent graduates. They are so excited about that. They want to get to know you. They want to network. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, because I know the Mondas talked about this a lot in their presentation a lot, but it is a great way to find folks in your field if you're looking to join somewhere else. It is a great way to do that. And now with the Mentorship Hub, which I hope everyone is signed up for, we have an even better way of kind of increasing that. But that is what we all have in common, is that we're all Gamecocks. So you might see the Moore School out and about. You might see the Gamecock Club out and about. We're all Gamecocks. We all want to connect and bring each other up. We have surveyed a lot of alumni, because the question that I often get is, well, is it just all happy hours and game views? This gives you a good idea of what our alumni want to do at events and with their clubs. And we share this information with our club chairs, because I'm going to get into what some of our events look like. You can see there is a strong want, a desire for community service. We love that. A lot of our clubs have been doing, one of my favorite events is the Greenville Zoo cleanup. So they go to the Greenville Zoo and they clean up the zoo for a few hours, the Greenville Gamecocks. It's a lot of fun. It's a Saturday morning. Everyone's out there sweating and working hard, but it is so fun. And they usually bring out about 30, 40 people. So that's a fun event. It's an annual thing. But as you can see here, lots of event types that bring out different ideas. And our clubs are very creative about this. The survey also said that, alumni, most of our events are free to attend, but they are willing to spend a little bit if it's a ticketed event. And I'll get into a little bit more on that here in a minute. Ideal times for alumni have said that their weekday evenings are really good. You see most of our events, especially the professional networking ones, happen around a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, usually right after work, so they catch you on your way home. Then, of course, we have the weekend daytime, which has been great for brewery tours and things like yoga and mimosas, which is the Charlotte Gamecocks. They put that together once a year. But also game views, obviously, for football. That always brings out a lot of alumni, and definitely worth your time checking out at some point. So just some of the events that have come up in the past. Charlotte, they do yoga and mimosas. They get together at a bar and they do yoga and hang out afterwards and get to connect. That is a ticketed event. The DC Gamecocks, they have an endowment. They did a personal finance 101 that included brunch, and everyone was encouraged to make a donation to their endowment. The Columbia Gamecocks here, they have the luxury of using. I'm coming to y'all live from the Pastides Alumni Center, which is the crown jewel on campus. Come check it out if you've never been down here. Absolutely come see this place. It is gorgeous, and we want to have you come here and visit us. This is an event, Lunch and Learn. They actually had the university architect on, and think about this guy's job. This school was started in 1801. It is one of the oldest schools in the country, and this person is tasked with keeping these buildings aesthetically pleasing, but also keeping that historical charm to it. It was a fascinating program, and folks loved seeing that. And then, so those three events were great. They were for scholarships, they were for fundraising. So we do some ticketed events like that, but most of our events are free to attend, like I said, or since we've had COVID, we've gotten really used to Zoom. And here we have the Germany Gamecocks here in the middle. That's their first event on Zoom, connecting Gamecocks in Germany. We were really excited about our potential for international clubs. So if anyone here is going international, hit us up, let us know. We want to know kind of where you're going. We're looking to build that program up quite a bit. And I guess if I have to go visit our alumni in Germany or London or anywhere else, I guess I'll do that. But seriously, there are a lot of events. I'm just going to let them talk for themselves. But here we have clubs, Baltimore, Charlotte, Atlanta, Charleston here in Columbia, the New York one, that brewery tour, that is one of their more popular events. It's a great fundraiser for them as well. A lot of fun is had at these events. And you can see here that it's not all just a happy hour or game view. A lot of these events are professional networking. A lot of them are educational events. There might be a speaker involved. A lot of times we get campus administrators there, experts at events too. President Caslin has been known to drop into a few events as well. And as the Monda said, if it works for the coach's schedule, we'd love to have coaches at our club events, and they've definitely graced us with a few times here and there. So how is this all possible? Your membership. So joining the Alumni Association and your membership is what makes these club programs possible. Check out www.uofscalumni.org/join today. There are some great rates in there. It's very affordable, but it is through our membership fees that we are able to do all of our affiliate programming and able to connect Gamecocks across the country, in Europe, and through other means as well, especially affinity programming. So that is all I have today. Check us out though. Go to uofscalumni.org/clubs and go to our website, find your club. We have all kinds of club resources in there as well. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see the screen here finally. Do anyone have any questions? How do you start a new club? So best way to start a new club is to give me a call and we'll chat about how many alumni we have in the area, where's a good centrally located spot. From there, if we kind of talk through some things, we have a club handbook. All new club chairs should take a look at it if you want to start a club, just to kind of give you an idea. Now it can come off like it seems like a lot, but keep in mind we have 4 different tiers of clubs. So some of our tiers are not going to be as active as others, and that's okay. And I always suggest new clubs start off slow. Don't start running right away. Maybe do 1 or 2 events in your first few months. See how it goes. We also survey alumni in the area because we want to make sure that if we're going to move forward with this and put our resources in, we want to make sure that alumni are going to want to do this. So we have some cities that are so sprawled out, it might be really hard for alumni to get to downtown in an area. So one of our clubs that we're looking at starting is Las Vegas. If you've been to Las Vegas, Vegas is spread out. It's hard to get to one side of the city to the next in a reasonable time. So we do that survey to also solicit ideas for alumni and see what area of town do they want to go to. If you're in Nashville, for example, you probably don't want to go to Bourbon Street because it is a tourist trap. You want to go probably where the locals are. That's a great way for us to inform our planning and for new clubs to plan, if we're going to get together for one football game or let's get together for one happy hour, we know where to go. Likewise, a city like Charlotte can say, well, I have a lot of alumni in Rock Hill who want to, be a part of what we're doing. So they've, to their credit, have tried to get involved and do some events in the Rock Hill area. Same thing, Charleston, they'll go to their areas as well. They might try some North Charleston events and things like that. So that survey is really important. After that, we create a logo for our clubs to use. Go check that out. It's a custom logo. It has the city's skyline in it. That goes on their Facebook, goes on their Twitter, goes on their Instagram if they want to create an Instagram. And then we will create social media channels for our clubs because that is just so important to see how active clubs are and really tell the club story. And then from there, we start planning events or activities or, just getting involved on social media. So usually a first event is usually a kind of get together happy hour or a game viewing. So at that point, we'll work with our local club chairs to find a location that's good for game viewings. Baltimore just started up recently, and they actually have a brewery in town that is managed by an alumni. So they had a great hookup there. These things happen all the time. That's one of my favorite parts of the job is making these connections for our alumni. And then once that's there, they're off and running. And at that point, I'm here to support the club as much as we can and provide any other resources they might have. I see we have someone, Kyle, you're moving to Charlotte. Congratulations. Connect with the Mondas, but also holler at James Wolf and our club chairs. Their information email is on our website, but all club chairs have an email address. It's usually just a city. So in this case, it'd be charlotte@uofscalumni.org, and that forwards to their personal email accounts. I see some folks going to grad school here at USC. Fantastic. If you're staying in Columbia, we do have a very active club here as well. I would actually say they're probably one of our more active clubs in the country, and they have such fun events. So please get involved with the Columbia Gamecocks if you're staying in town, or if you're going to grad school, maybe at a satellite USC area, check those out as well. Some of my favorite club events that I've been to, New York City had, they had an event where they got together with the minor league baseball team. And we kind of got together with the alumni before the event started. I was up there as my first trip to New York. I was really excited. We got to the baseball game. They had a whole section for us. They're called the Brooklyn Cyclones. They're not in Brooklyn at all. They're on Coney Island. So I'd never been there. I got to see the hot dog where they do the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. If you're a hot dog fan like me, that's Super Bowl. But anyway, the game started. We have alumni there. We're all just kind of connecting. And then a huge thunderstorm came through and the game got called. We had it was so bad that umbrellas were flying off picnic tables. So that was my first in-person New York City Gamecocks event. And we had to end it early thanks to a monsoon coming through. So that's a fun event. Charlotte always brings up very fun creative events as well. The Charleston event where they had the canned food competition with Little Brother Upstate, that was fantastic. I loved that. And then the Columbia group here, they did that lunch and learn that was so insightful and informative, and it brought in new alumni for it, which is always just a lot of fun. I also am a big fan of getting out and seeing our clubs and for away game opportunities. We don't get to see them all the time, so looks like we might be going to San Antonio soon for the Final Four. Being cognizant of what's going on with COVID, but also being able to safely connect alumni is really exciting. I just love seeing that. I'm really excited about kind of what's clubs starting to get back together again soon. But there's also been some really good opportunities to engage virtually. Charlotte did a concert series with a young man named Randall Fowler. He's a country music singer. Look him up. He is awesome. Lots of different opportunities there that the online kind of virtual thing has afforded us, whether it be trivia, events with Provost Tate, the guy's a rock star, all kinds of opportunities that come up that have been so creative. Our clubs, they really do listen to their folks. They listen to their board members on what they want to do. And a lot of fun and exciting things are coming up. Charlotte has kind of set the standard for golf tournaments. We now have golf tournaments in Horry County and one coming up in Atlanta. So if you're in those areas, look for more opportunities to engage. They're definitely there. Any other questions? Well, I'm going to put my email address here in the chat box. If you have any questions, or if you're interested in starting a club or getting involved with the club, don't be afraid to holler at me. I love connecting Gamecocks across the country, and always here to chat with ideas or anything like that. But also, we want to hear from our alumni. So once you get out, you graduate, and you're out doing amazing things that I know y'all are going to do, please stay in touch with us. Let us know where you end up. That's not just so we can email you. We just love hearing about our alumni kicking some tail and keep doing great things. So I do appreciate y'all. Thanks again for hanging with me this morning. I know we are excited for the weekend. I hope y'all are too. Thanks so much, and go Gamecocks.
Thank you so much for that, Steve. So finally today, for our closing remarks, we have Wes Hickman, the CEO of UofSC's Alumni Association. He's been our CEO since May 2019. And prior to his current role, Wes was UofSC's Chief Communications Officer and Director of the Office of Communications and Public Affairs.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's so great to be with you. So I think first things first, while Steve was coming to you from the beautiful Pastides Alumni Center, as you can see from the seatbelt that I have on right now, I am coming to you from the road in the much less beautiful 2012 Honda Pilot. And first want to acknowledge my wonderful wife, who is an alumna of the university, who is driving as we're heading out for a backpacking trip this weekend. So glad to spend a few minutes with you this morning. Thank you to all of you for being with us. There's been a tremendous amount of fantastic information. Thank you to our presenters. It's always a pleasure to have to spend the morning with each of you and learn a little bit about your careers, the things that you have to offer to our alums, to our students, and we really appreciate your time. So for those of you that are joining us this morning, I know that we've got some recent grads, we've got some folks that maybe graduated a year or so ago and are in our Young Alumni groups. There's a lot of information that you've been presented with this morning. And the one thing I think I want to point out is things like this is the benefit of having access to the Gamecock network. Over 325,000 living alumni. The Alumni Association, our primary job is to try to connect all of you together in a way that benefits each of you and benefits the university. And we do that mostly through our club activities. We also have professional development services, kind of like you've seen today. We're working on a mentorship platform that we just launched earlier this year in January, which is a great way to connect with folks in your field or maybe in a field that you want to go into. And then, of course, we also do work with student groups and try to connect them with alumni as well. A little bit about maybe where we're going in the future, tell you why. I know Steve touched a little bit on membership and how membership helps support of 50 plus clubs and affinity groups right now. Our goal over the next 10 years is to increase that number by 50%. That way we can help organize Gamecocks all over the world in a way that they're able to support one another. We're also trying to grow our professional development programs, our career service programs, our mentorship programs. And so right now you've probably seen some information on our mentorship hub. If you log on, sign up for our mentorship hub, you can either connect with an older alum that might be in your industry, or if you want to help mentor students, you can do that as well. The students will get added into the mentorship hub in June or July. And so there's a great opportunity for you to give back as a young alumnus to our current student body. And then the other big thing that we do as an alumni association is we provide scholarships to students. Some of you may have been the beneficiaries of that, whether you're a legacy scholar, an honors scholar, or a Richard T. Greener scholar. We provide about $250,000 in scholarships each year to students. And we have a 10-year goal of multiplying that by 4 and trying to provide $1 million in scholarships each year to our students as a way for alumni to give back to our university. So we've got big plans and we want all of you to be a part of it. We would encourage you to join, but more importantly, we would encourage you to connect with your local club. You can participate in club activities whether you're a member or not. We hope that those activities are of value to you so that you see the benefit that you would be providing to others through your membership. But we make all of our stuff available to all alumni of the university, whether or not they are members of our organization. It's our way of trying to do our part to support our global network, trying to do our part to support our university. So that's a little bit about where we're going over the next 10 years. We want you all to be involved. And I'm happy to take any questions. I just really appreciate spending some time with y'all this morning. So if you got any questions for me, I'll take them now, and I'll ask maybe Steve, if you or Haven will put my contact information in the chat while we're taking questions, then people can get in touch with me afterwards as well. So any questions or thoughts from anybody? All right. Well, if not, Alyssa, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you to everyone who's come to our to our panel today and stayed through it. And thank you to all of our panelists as well for coming to speak. We really appreciate y'all.